Okay, we're recording.
You said it was size of Mr. Caboose the other day?
Okay, we're going to start off
Okay,
here.
no one falls into the camera, no one be weird.
Hey, yesterday we spoke about the light which comes down, quote, Besod Shoresh, which means, as opposed to the Besod Tosefes, right? The Shoresh is the light which is measured from the Kav. The Kav itself is measured, and then the Kav measures out light. It's different in Tzilus as it is in Biyah, Bria, Tzir, and Asiyah, and it's different in Bria as it is in Yitzir, and Yitzir as it is Asiyah. We gave the whole Mashalim about this. And the idea is that there's this minimization of the light, lower and lower, as you go down to the lower worlds. Why? Because the light itself is a limited light, and therefore it continues to limit and get smaller until it vanishes. Welcome to Olam Hazeh. And that's what happens when you get to this world. You don't see the godly light at all. However, going into the next paragraph, Amnam, Hamshacha shebesod Tosefes, when you have a Hamshacha, which is this other form of Hashpa, which is called Tosefes, in addition, Hi Hamshacha shelo al pi mayim rakav amida. This is drawing down light which is not according to the measured, limited light of the Kav. Ulios b'chinas gilei l'kuz b'olamos. And what do you need that for? To reveal God into the worlds. Every world which is created by the Kav limits God in that measure of whatever that world is, according to how much limitation God prescribed. So there's another way of bringing light which breaks those boundaries, like Yitzias Mitzrayim. And this is called another aspect of light in Besod Tosefes, like Shabbos. Even the lowly world, our world, it experiences the level of machshava on Shabbos as it's known. So we can speak about this for a second, but in the Kutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe writes, or Torah Or, that all the worlds during the weekday receive from the energy of Asiyah, not all the worlds, all the other countries of this world except for Israel receive from the energy of Asiyah during the weekday, and Eretz Yisrael receives from Yetzirah. I find this to be very fascinating information.
During the week.
Yes.
Tzfat gets from Tzilus?
And what's that?
Tzfat gets from Tzilus?
Wait a second. You might. It's not actually a joke. It's a very interesting thing. And on Shabbos, all the worlds go up and receive from Bria. So what does it actually mean? All the worlds. In other words, all this world, the Israel and
All the nations.
All the nations. We're even out to some degree. Except that the Frierdiker Rebbe said that on Tzfat, it's like Shabbos a whole week long, which means I guess we start off in Bria and then we have to go somewhere. So we probably do go to Atzilus on Shabbos, L'chaim. So what does it mean to receive your energy from Asiyah versus receiving your energy from Yetzirah? And then on Bria we all go up. Let's talk about that for a second, because that's what he means here when he says there's an add-on in Kedusha. And he brings this much. He doesn't explain it, but he says he explains it elsewhere. We should look into it. What does it mean to receive your energy from Asiyah? Asiyah is the idea that you create a vessel, and it leaves you, and you put it in the shuk, and it has no obvious connection with the creator of it. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that's what the fools think, that this world, Hashem made it in the way that craftsman makes a vessel, he puts it down in the shop and he walks away. When the reality is, he doesn't make anything in this world like that. He's constantly enlivening it. Which means he never takes his hands off it. It's a constant state of being brought into existence from the Eibusher. This is the whole principle of Baal Shem Tov's Vort. Over there it's brought in Tanya. Now, nonetheless, we just said the creation receives from Asiyah, outside of Eretz Yisrael. That Asiyah is the idea of making a vessel. So the truth is that Hashem does not really put the vessel down and walk away, but in the other countries, the rest of the world, it feels that way. In other words, he's contracted himself to the point that the feeling that they have is that they've been put down and the Creator has walked away from them. Even though he's actually enlivening them in every second, it's Sheishis Yamim Asa. He made it in a way where it looks like it's a deed. That's why they made this mistake. Even rabbis made this mistake throughout the centuries, because that's the way the world feels. Whereas in Eretz Yisrael, it's called Eretz HaKodesh. It's the land of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. God doesn't take his eyes off it for 1 second, even in the simple shot. Everybody knows it's the land of the Jews, no matter what they're going to say in the UN. And so there's a constant reminder of divinity every second that you're here. You're never forgetting the fact that you're walking in the lands of the patriarchs and God is real. So it's like Yetzirah it's receiving from Yetzirah. What does Yetzirah represent? So if we said that the lower three worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, represent what? Thought, speech, and action, right? So the lower one is action, Asiya. Yetzirah, therefore, is speech. So what does it mean? We're created from the level of speech. Like speech, you feel that the speaker is speaking the words. In other words, it's a constant feeling. Even it's in the creation. Mamash is different to live in Israel, to be in the boundaries of Israel, than it is to be everywhere else in the world. Even during the weekday, that you feel this overwhelming hashkacha pratis, that there's a God. It's just like that. And why is that? Because the animation of the world, it's in some way perceptible to us that it's coming out of God. Right? And I think it's true. In Tzfat, even more so.
You're equating Bria with speech?
Yetzirah.
Yetzirah, okay.
Bria
Would be,
is Shabbos. Everybody on Shabbos goes up to Bria.
so that'd be thought.
That's thought. Why is it called thought? Because the idea of thought is that it yet does not even leave the Creator. Just like a person's thought, it's inside of you. It doesn't even come out yet. So the idea of coming out, but being spoken simultaneously, you do feel separate, but you just feel that your separateness is connected. Whereas deed, you feel separate and period. The speech, you still feel separate, but you're connected to the speaker. Thought is the idea that the whole creation is happening inside of Hashem's mind. It doesn't even exit the Creator. Which means the feeling that we have on Shabbos is mamish, that we are part of God, right? And this you can feel in any place in the world. And the Frierdiker Rebbe brings down, actually, this is a physical reality, and it's brought in Chazal. It says that Amma Aretz was not going to be meshakir on Shabbos. He doesn't tell, even a simple Jew doesn't tell a lie on Shabbos. And that's what it says in the Gemara. I mean, there's a change physically. And the Frierdiker Rebbe used to say that the pulse of a Jew changes on Shabbos. You can tell physically that there's a difference in the creation, and that's what he's saying here. That there's an extra amount of godly energy, besod tosefes, in a way of it's not natural. It's not what the world was designed to be like from the standpoint of the Ka.
Right. But we also receive a higher level of soul. So is it the same thing that we're talking about?
It's the same thing. What is that higher level of soul? It's the source of your soul. It's your very own soul. They call it a second soul. But it's your soul as it is in its homeland. So when your soul sort of gets spit out, Vayetze Yaakov leBeersheva, it goes out of Beersheva and goes into Haran, which is us during the weekday, you only get like a little ray of your soul. But when you go inside of Hashem, there's your soul. So it's like basically you find yourself. And therefore you have all this extra soul powers.
It also matches the creation because the 6 days were created by speech, but the Shabbat was a thought.
He rests from speaking, and that's actually a very good point. This whole mimer that I'm sort of giving over here, it predicates on the fact that says if Hashem rested from the 6 days, it says in the 6 days he rested, Shabbos vayinafash. What did he rest from? His work was speech. So the question then is, if Hashem stops speaking, the world would disappear. Why is there still a world on Shabbos? That's the actual theme and so he explains, because even though he's not speaking, he's thinking the world into creation. And the whole world is being enlivened by a completely different energetic force of the mind of God. What's the idea of the mind of God? Is that the feeling of the world is that it did not leave him yet. It still feels inside of him. Good point.
Well, if the whole world's spoken into being, then we should still feel the connection as much as...
Except outside of Eretz Yisrael, he makes it as though it's like action. I'm saying he says in the Maimer there, it's not actually like action, because God forbid Hashem doesn't actually walk away. But he throws another contraction on the part of the feeling of the creations, so that they don't feel like they're being spoken. He's speaking them, but they feel like they're being made.
Okay.
Deed. Whereas not in Eretz Yisrael, we don't have that extra set of contractions.
So
But,
is this level Yitzir? It's not Yitzir Klali. This is like a Gashmish Yitzir from Asiya. Like it's not Yitzir like Nekudi, like totally.
No, maybe. You can always throw that around, but right now we're talking
It's
about
like Asiya. Like
Yitzira Prati.
Yeah, Yitzir Prati.
But Darech Klal, going on the last line, but Darech Klal b'Shabbos hu b'chinas giloi mochin da'aba kanoda u'biyom tov mer giloi mochin de'ima. Yeah. So basically, what's going on Shabbos is that there's a shine I know what really makes it happen. I'm saying in Osios, a different mimer, that it's machshava. Here he says that what happens is the mochin of Abba. What is the mochin of Abba? Chochma, right? And on Yom Tov, Bina. So how's that connected? Because the 7 days of the week represent the 7 spheros, of course. And those are like the emotional attributes. Usually we do not, the mind is concealed and hidden, and all you see is the emotions. Just like a person who's emotional, right? There's some intellect driving his emotion, but when you get emotional, all you see is the emotion, and the intellect, which was the founder of that emotion, is hidden and concealed inside of the emotion itself. You don't see the mind. Yeah? So that's like the idea of the weekdays in general, that the mochin get concealed inside of Hashem's midos, and therefore you're not in perception of such a high level of divinity. On Shabbos, there's a direct line of mochin da Abba. There's a ray of the mind of God itself. Same principle we said before, just in a different way of looking at it. And on Yom Tov, which is also a holy day, right? It breaks the same boundaries of finite that were established by the Kav, because all of a sudden there's a holiday. What's going on? There's an extra measure of light. It's not quite as high as Shabbos. It's called Mochin De'ema. That's why we call it Mikra Kodesh. He's going to say Mikrae Kodesh. Here, Basocha Maluvash B'chinas Mochin Da'aba. When it comes to the mind of the mother, which is Bina, so the idea is you don't get, you're able to, on a Yom Tov, you're able to see the sphere of Bina hovering over the Midos, right? Because you have, Bina is the lower intellectual sphere. So during the weekday, when you only have the emotions, but if it's a holiday, it's a Yom Tov, the Bina, which is the source of the emotions, shows up, but not the Chokhmah itself. But the Chokhmah is contained in the Bina, but the Chokhmah itself doesn't show up. On Shabbos, the Chokhmah itself shows up.
What about Yom Tov on Shabbos?
So you have also the Chokhmah, obviously, and the Bina. Chokhmah and the Bina. And that's what he says, that Besocham, inside the mind of the Bina, Maluvash B'chinas Mochin Da'aba, it is invested the mind of the father. But then again, you have the same problem. You don't see the mind of the father. The mind of the father is concealed inside the mother. You see the mother, though, at least, on a Yom Tov. Whereas usually on a weekday, the mother and the father are concealed inside of the children, which is the emotions, and all you see is the children. So Yom Tov comes out the Bina, the mother, and therefore it's called Mikroi Kodesh. It's called a calling of Kodesh, or convocation of Kodesh. Why? Because Chokhmah is called Kodesh. So Bina, because it has the Chokhmah inside of it, it's called a calling of Kodesh. It's not Kodesh itself, because that's Shabbos. But the holidays are called a calling of Kodesh, because they bring forth at least a ray of that Chokhmah, and at least enough of it to allow Bina to shine. So the point he's trying to say is, what I was trying to say, and he's trying to say that in all these cases, you see there's some extra measure of godliness which shines into the world beyond the standard Kav.
Is there ever a revelation of Das? Or that's assumed within...
Im ein bina ein das, im ein das ein bina. Right? It's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which means you'll never have bina without the das. What is the das? Standard definition of das, which works well in almost every case, is concentration. Concentration. Staying connected to something. So the das is that if you want that bina to actually be experienced in your Yom Tov, you have to keep the Yom Tov holy. You have to stay with it. Right? As soon as you if you don't keep the Yom Tov, for example, you don't follow it, you lack your das, you're sticking to it, then you disconnect yourself from the special powers that are available. Same thing with Shabbos. You keep the Shabbos, it's the das, then it comes down. So it's like it's the way that you draw it forth. So therefore it is always there when you have the Bina or the Chokhmah. And what are these revelations of Shabbos and Yom Tov? These are revelations that are not in accordance with the Ishtalshalus, the normal orderly effect that Hashem had in mind when He brought the existence of the worlds into being. Now, that's holidays and Shabbos, but the truth is that's according to every time you're going to do Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs is like a little Shabbos anytime you want. And again, if you have das, which means you connect yourself and concentrate to this other form of energy, it's always available to come into the world in a way which it defies the Seder Ishtalshalus. It brings more godliness into an area than Hashem had originally established. Torah mitzvah is amazing stuff. By doing mitzvahs, you draw down the Or Ein Sof into the world. The Or Ein Sof is not supposed to come into the world. Hashem pretty much made a whole to-do about making a tzimtzum and seder ishtalshlus and so that there would not be Or Ein Sof in the world. And here with Torah mitzvahs, you can bring Or Ein Sof into the world.
But which route does it come in? Does it come through the secondary light or
The Kav.
through the Kav?
Well, that's what he asked yesterday. It comes through the Kav, but it's in other words, it brings because remember we said yesterday at the end of the class, and if you don't mind, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to just cap up where we've been. We're talking about the yichud of Havai and Elokim, right? That's the whole idea is that there's a That what is Hayom? Day and night. There's this fusion. And what do we say? One of the main fusions is that Elokim is also Havaya. Because when Havaya wants to show itself like a teacher, right? He has to bring himself down into a mashal, and that mashal is not really concealing him. In fact, it's a way of revealing him. So Elokim, or we said like when the mind in general wants to express itself, even to itself, it has to conceal itself, and it has to define itself into certain pratim in order for the wisdom to come out. Otherwise, the wisdom is sort of scattered. So the concealment is part of the revelation, right? And so therefore, what he said, if the concealment is in fact part of the revelation, then the lower it goes, that is really your ability to bring Havaya into every place. Because if you didn't have the concealment, Havaya would not be able to descend down into that student or into that next lower place. So you have it there. So inside the Kav, even though it's all limitation, it's been stuffed into a box, at the end of the day, it's Havaya. It's just Havaya which is going to be the filter of Elokim, but that doesn't stop it from being Havaya. So since you have, like we said yesterday, you have being, because that's what Havaya is. It's basically the being of God. Oh, you only have a little bit of it. But once you have a little bit of it, you have it at least. So you can probe into the depths of it, and you can bring out from the Kav the Or Ein Sof. So a short answer to your question, it comes from the Kav. But it's not Kav light. It's that inside the Kav, even if you have a tiny little ray of the Kav, what it is essentially is the same infinite Or Ein Sof as you had over there. It's just you only have a small amount of it. But the amount you have is the same thing. So when you have Torah mitzvahs, it basically brings out the essence of the Kav into that area, into wherever you're performing the mitzvah.
So you connect with the Mecca through the Kav.
Yeah. Because the Malkif is everywhere. It doesn't really disappear, like we have been saying all this time. When the teacher contracts himself to go into the mind of the student, he's not hiding from himself. He's still there. He's just pretending, like holding himself back so the student can't see him. So what does that do? That gives me existence. Now I can, for Hashem, meaning the student can see him means that you can be a human being with your own sort of Daled Amos. If he wasn't holding back, you'd be not negated. So now he makes you as a finite human being. He didn't disappear. He's just hiding. So with Torah mitzvahs, you can bring him out.
About the Shabbos, Chachma. Okay, so that means that Shabbos has a higher degree of Kedusha than Yom Tov. What about the Shabbos of Shabbos, Yom Kippur?
Even Shabbos is more than Yom Kippur. Yeah.
Well, then why do we call Yom Kippur Shabbos of Shabbos?
Every Shabbos, there's a part of Shabbos called Shabbos of Shabbos, which is like the Riving, the end of Shabbos. Look, there's a few ways to measure it. In other words, I'm not like with mystical eyes able to see these things, but it says Al Pi Halacha. You know, if Yom Kippur, you're only chayev kares only for desecrating Yom Kippur. In Shabbos, you're chayev misa. Additionally, it says there's 7. You go through the aliyahs. You can see what's like considered more chashuv. On a weekday, there's 3 aliyahs, right? On Rosh Chodesh, Chol HaMoed, there's 4 aliyahs. On Yom Tov, there's 5 aliyahs. On Yom HaKippurim, there's 6 aliyahs. On Shabbos, there's 7 aliyahs. It's like it rises up. Shabbos is not a small thing. It's like it happens to be that it's every week, but it's the biggest holiday that we have.
And it's every week.
And it's every week.
So what about
Joy
when
to the
Yom
world.
Tov falls? So what about when Yom Tov is on Shabbos?
There's 13 aliyahs.
It's like highest.
All right.
So this answer that comes into the world by doing Torah mitzvah is Elokim, which is the Havaya.
No, that's already like the straight Havaya. Elokim is the world.
So we don't see that it's Havaya, we see that it's Elokim.
Depends what you're looking at. I mean, in other words, you can see that it's not part of the regular world. In other words, a Jew putting on tefillin, that's not natural. What is that? Right? Only reason you're doing that is because it's the will of the living God. There's no other reason to put on tefillin. There's no other reason to not eat this and to eat this and to stand and daven and say all these words all the time. You just got so used to it that you think this is normal. But it's not normal. If you're just living a normal human life, you would not do these things. So the fact that you're doing these things is because you're entering the will of God into this area. Okay, so we don't see mamish. I don't know what we're supposed to see. Like we're supposed to have some kind of a hallucinogenic experience. Okay, all the lights will come on later. They'll break the boundaries of the world mamish. But in the meantime, you can see, at least b'chitzonius, just like I said a minute ago about Eretz Yisrael. I don't know if you were in here, but being in Eretz Yisrael, there's an automatic connection to God. Because why is it called Eretz Yisrael? It's the land of the Jews, the land of the Bible. Just on a very simple shot level. It's different than other places because it has this holiness to it based on its history and everything else. So the same thing is with Torah mitzvahs. You're doing Torah mitzvahs, and where do you really feel this? When you first start doing Torah mitzvahs. When you get used to it, you think it's just normal. When you first start wearing tzitzis down a public street, or you first put a yarmulke on your head and walk on a public bus, and you haven't been accustomed to doing that, you're 25 years old, you really feel like there's something really different going on about you. Like you've exited normal life, and you've gone into this sanctified life. So you just get used to it. But the reality is you can see it.
Well, usually it's just an uncomfortable, awkward feeling, like I'm like dressing like a nerd or something.
I think I'm
I didn't have that experience, I guess. That's,
get really
no, you feel like you're one man against the world. You're like little Avram Avinu all of a sudden, because everyone now can see that what you think is not what they think,
You feel revealed or something.
and your politics are not their politics. But and your God is not their God. You're sticking out. But it's a feeling of, whoa, there's a God here. Okay. Anyway, so okay. This is also how it works with Torah mitzvahs. By doing the mitzvahs, you draw down the Or Ein Sof. So this is Tzemach. This is the answer to your question. That's nice. His question is not really asking, but he's answering is, why don't we see the Or Ein Sof, which is what your question was. He says, because at this juncture, the real Or Ein Sof, it doesn't show up here yet, except in the simple ways that I said, but you do make a big change in the entire state of Yishtalshelus. What happens is the light of the Or Ein Sof comes down. It comes down and enters into the Kav, but it only shows itself up until and including the world of Atzilus. So Atzilus is having this unbelievable messianic experience when you're doing Torah mitzvahs. But since Atzilus drops a curtain over it before Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya come into the play, and the Kav is not revealed, as we explained at length yesterday in the lower worlds, you don't see the light still in these lower worlds. But you did add them. And there's a huge addition of new light that was not set aside originally for the sake of the world. It happens. It's just that it's like put in a box in Atzilus, which you'll see later. Basically, every time you do a mitzvah, you're like putting the lights in the box of Atzilus, which only when that curtain is ripped away in the end of days are we going to see all those new lights we put in there. But you're putting lights in there, and you're adding.
So is there some machine of that comes down to us?
I spoke about that just a second ago. There is a feeling of a difference between you and the rest of the world when you do Torah mitzvahs. That's as much as it gets. The ratzon of Hashem
could be very misleading. Is there actual?
I'm saying forget feeling. I'm saying forget feeling. The ratzon of Hashem, for sure there's a hamshacha. For sure there's a hamshacha. It's just not begilui, and you can even see it because you're doing a mitzvah, and the mitzvah is not something that belongs in this physical world. It's just not, it wouldn't normally be here. There's no there's no animals or even humans or even aliens, space creatures that are running around trying to go to the Toferes to say, make sure there's no wool in my linen. That's just not a natural thing. Right? And if that's happening, it means the will of Hashem has found its way all the way down to this world. It only looks like some physical act because we don't have the Gilui of the Or Ein Sof yet. But we have that Gilui of the Ratzon. It is, that's what I'm saying, it's so pashut, you can look right past it. It's a mitzvah, it's different, it doesn't come from this world.
Tzedakah comes all the way down, though, no?
What's that?
When I say that about tzedakah, it comes all the way down.
In other words, what does it mean all the way down? That, first of all mitzvahs are called tzedakah. In Yerushalmi, mitzvah is called tzedakah stam. But what does it mean all the way down? I guess is that you can see its reward in Olam Hazeh. Hashem says, test me, like give tzedakah and you'll see you'll become rich. But I don't know anyone who gives tzedakah who sees the Or Ein Sof.
Right.
Although I did give a little ride to an old lady on my little rabbi mobile today, and I felt a little bit the Or Ein Sof. No, it's really, it was a crazy experience. She was like this like tough little Israeli woman, and she's like, give me a ride, and I was like, I don't have time, and then I felt really bad, so I turned around, picked her up. At the end, she's like, Rabbi, give me a bracha. My daughter's undergoing like this crazy surgery, and all of a sudden I like broke into tears. It was like a crazy situation. You do tzedakah, Hashem rewards you with godliness. It's true. Anyway, makom. Translation. So even though it's packed away for you in a box in Atzilus, nevertheless in Atzilus itself, new godly infinite light of the style of the Or Sof is drawn down in a way which is much more than was designated for Atzilus to begin with. In other words, it happens. Atzilus also had a certain designation from the Kav, how much light. Oh, it was a nice designation, you got a good portion. He gets Giloy Elokus b'mahus, right? And you can see, but you get more, you get an addition when you do a mitzvah. It gets an addition.
On an individual basis or a collective?
No, every Jew adds the light.
You have your own box of Atzilus?
You have your own box of Atzilus. Yes. I mean, you deposit it for the collective, I'd imagine. And we're all working on the same project. It's like, the gold that you store up eventually is going to get put into the same base of mikdash that belongs to everybody, but it's your gold. Shem Kol Yisrael. Umakom achar muvan be'inyan tzidkaso omeres la'ad. Elsewhere it says regarding that, it says his righteousness stands forever, which is the same idea. Shetosvos oros ba'tzilush ha'idem ma'isa mitzvahs omeres bifnei atzmo ad la'asid. And this is the same thing basically he says elsewhere. He brings from a different mimer from the Middle Rebbe that the pasuk which says his righteousness stands forever is referring to this, that when you do righteousness, it's standing forever in that realm of Atzilus until such time it will be revealed to you in the future. Why does he say the words it's standing on its own? Bifnei atzmo. It's kind of an unnecessary addition. Right? Let me just explain the question again. He says that he's being medayik on the quote. That what does it mean? Your righteousness lasts forever, stands forever. That these added lights of Atzilus through the deeds of mitzvahs stand bifnei atzmam ad la'asi. They stand on their own. Why do they have to say they stand on their own? They just stand. They stand in Atzilus. So the words bifnei atzmam means on their own means separated from the regular lights of Atzilus. That's what it means on their own. That they're bigger than the regular lights of Atzilus. That's the whole point we're trying to make.
I thought it's a definitive error. It doesn't affect
that. Maybe also, and it was exclude nice perushi, but here he's just saying that, to his point, that you're adding a different light. It's not an Atzilus light. And that's what it means. When you do righteousness, you add a light, bifnei atzmo, a new different light, into the world of Atzilus. And that's what it means, sho'omeres la'ad. It stands forever. La'asid, ya'ir zeba gilamata. And thank Tzemach, you can finally get your reward. In the future, it will shine in an open, revealed way below as well. We'll see the hallucination or the whatever.
So this whole Taisus Aris is just in the future?
No, it happens now. And in fact, it's not going to happen in the future unless you bring it down now. Just you won't see it until the future.
So it's not happening down here.
I'm saying it's on all the ways that we said it is happening, right? It's happening
up there, though.
Yeah, but again, you're.
And I know I'm saving it for
it's happening here. It's just that you don't see it. It's like putting a bunch of money in the bank. Is it not happening? Are you not rich? You're filthy rich. You just didn't take your money out. But it's not like you're not rich. It's happening. Every single time you do a Torah mitzvah, it brings an unbelievable charge of extra energy into this world, which is bichlal not shy to this world. You just don't see it yet. In the higher worlds, they see it. But we don't see it yet.
But your example of your situation with this old lady that you helped and so forth, something came down. It wasn't just an accident, but you experienced something here, no?
Yeah, but I mean, the truth is that I'm not sure. Like, listen, I said the story, but I think the reason why I was really shook up is because there was this horrible tragedy that happened in Kfar Chabad last night. A young girl took her life. And it's a whole crazy thing. She wrote a letter to her, like a letter behind, that because her mother passed away and she can't live another day without her mother. And it's just like the craziest thing. So when this mother was crying about her, I was just like broke into tears. But I don't know if it's because I was rewarded for my mitzvah or just like it was a sad situation. But I'm just saying, in general, I don't have any problem if a person is spiritual and feels, something. But the point is beferish, you're not feeling what it's really going to feel like to draw down the Or Ein Sof in this world until such time comes.
Is that feeling misleading then?
It could be, because every time we walk through a door, we say, do not turn after your eyes and after your heart. Because if you go after that feeling, it could lead you to who knows where. You could all of a sudden decide to do things based on the feeling, which is veering from Torah mitzvahs, because you're searching for that feeling. We're soldiers, basically. We're doing the Torah mitzvahs. We don't even know what they mean half the time, or why we're doing them. Tzedakah, like it says, that has a certain difference from the rest of them, because you do see right away, Hashem gives you like sort of a promise, give tzedakah and I'll show you that I'm going to bless you for it. So there are certain things that are within our realm to understand. But in general, we're ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim. We're doing it because we believe.
How old was the girl?
I don't know exactly. I'm not sure. Anyway, the family should be comforted.
But do you think that, did you try to analyze it, or is it not worth even analyzing something like that?
No.
Because
Gam achshav, yesh ha'ora ma'mitzvah gam lamata. Here you have it. He's getting to our subject. We should just probably read, and we wouldn't have to think of so many questions or answers. He says, even now there's a shine from the mitzvah.
Aha!
Even below. Shezeu ma shenimshach or makif ala adam ha'osei as a mitzvah. What is it? Is that you draw the or makif on the person that does the mitzvah, but therefore you need to stand before someone who does a mitzvah. So it's kind of exactly what we've been saying, which is beautiful. What does it mean you draw an or makif on yourself? It means beferish you can't experience it. That's what an or makif is. Makif is it's above your conscious level. It doesn't, however, mean that it's not real. It's like putting $1 million in the bank. I don't see the money yet, but I'm rich. And therefore it even comes out in halacha, which is what I was trying to say the whole time. But pashtus, the halacha says you have to stand before someone who's doing a mitzvah. You see someone doing a mitzvah, you have to stand up. Why? Because ma'aminim b'nei ma'aminim, you know that this person right now is like an extra measure of light attached to his soul, and therefore, even in a physical world, you have to stand up in front of it. So everyone else who sees you sees a revelation of God. That you're standing up in front of a person doing mitzvah. Do they see lights and actions and camera? No, but I'm saying it comes down to the pshat level that there's something different going on here that's not fit into the regular world.
What do you mean you have to stand up?
It's like Birchas Kohen. Any mitzvah, really. It's like you're standing there being blessed by a man who's like has the powers of God. We're just in a shul, we're not in the Beis HaMikdash, and whatever, you're tired, you came to shul late that day, like you think you're living in a normal world. But here's a man standing there with some kind of funky hand motion, under a talis, singing songs of and praising you from God. It's not normal. You know what I'm saying? It's not normal. What did you say, Shlomo?
No, but I don't see that people standing up whenever somebody does a mitzvah.
So, give them the good word. That's what they're supposed to do. Yeah. It's befeirush in the rosh. Okay, whatever. Sakdim. Kamosh kasuv b'sefer shel beinim sov perek mem vav. As it says in the Tanya, umash masham shezeu ba nefesh b'chines ur panimi. So then what he says is that even though it's an or makif, which means you don't perceive it, but over there it's mashma that in the nefesh it comes in a way of or panimi, which means that it is actually coming inside of you and changing you. It's actually elevating you and changing your whole position. What does it mean or panimi? Or makif is that it went over your head. The Rebbe taught something and wow, he's got a great smile and he looks so holy, but I don't really know what he said. I don't speak Yiddish. Or panimi, he taught me something and I'm lit up from the idea. I've changed my whole life because of it. It entered me and entered my mind and my heart and my everything. So he says that the light that happens when you do a mitzvah, it comes into your soul and enters you. But it's in your soul and enters you. It still could be makif to your actual perception of who you are. I guess it depends on how connected you are with your soul, quite frankly. Right? But in your soul it comes out in or panimi. But whatever. It seems like there's a little bit of a contradiction here, one to the other. Is it a makif, is it a panimi? But he puts this in parentheses, that in the Tanya it's mashma that it comes in or panimi. Which means that, I guess the way you can solve this is that it comes into you, you might not be aware of it. The point is that it has an effect even b'olam hazeh hagashmi, you're just not aware of it.
So, in other words, you're tapping into or makif, but since you are in this world, that's how you're bringing it the panini.
Or panimi here,
into the world.
or panimi here is a positive thing. It's saying that the or makif comes into a panimi.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how the light of God comes into this world.
Right,
That
'cause
is a
you're here.
revelation of godliness.
Kamokei hu be'esek Torah. That's mitzvah. So it is when you learn Torah. The shnayim sheyoshim ve'oskim b'Torah shechina shroya. It says two people that sit and learn Torah, the Shekhinah dwells with them. Every day this happens here. Are you guys experiencing the Shekhinah? Right? It says, how do you know even one person is, that he gets schar? Right? Another statement to this same effect, that Hashem only has, where is Hashem found in His world? In the 4 cubits of halacha, which means Hashem, in place of a Beis HaMikdash, you learn halacha, you'll bring Him down there. So you have all these statements to the effect that you're mamish bringing the Shekhinah into this world when you learn. What does it all mean? It means more light and revelation that the world is normally supposed to have is happening when you do these things. It says that it's holy in your midst. That what do you mean? Bakir b'cha kodesh, inside of yourself is kodesh. That by learning Torah, you bring kodesh, chokhmah, something higher than the world's, into your intestines, whatever it means. You bring it into your guts. You bring it down into this world in a real way. Okay. Ubizman abayis hayagili orin sof mamish lamata b'kodesh hakadoshim. Now, we don't experience it, as we've been talking about, in a real obvious way in Galus, but in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, it's likened to the times of the future. There was mamish revealed miracles happening every single day in Yerushalayim and elsewhere, which did not fit into the order of nature. So that was because they were doing Torah mitzvahs. You could see it even. You could see that the boundaries of nature were being broken. And by the way, you can see it also now. In other words, if you want to talk about how do you see it, and really see it, and I mean it, it's like the Indian of Chassidus brings this concept of hashkacha pratis into focus. That when you are aware that everything is being divinely organized by Hashem, it's like you're seeing miracles the whole day long. That's not natural. That Eliezer comes to the well, and this Rambam says you're not allowed to do this. It's like a old style, non-Jewish way, but we could do it in our own way. You're not allowed to say if a girl comes to the well, then I know I should take this action. It's like a form of an omen of witchcraft and so forth. But nonetheless, that's the kind of idea when you, without asking for things, when you see. I just spoke to this person yesterday, and wow, his mother just called me on the phone today, and I happen to be traveling to that place. Like, that's not normal. That's mamash, something that's just beyond the natural flow of just how things would go. It's the intervention of a divine hand into your life. You can see that.
See it backwards.
You see it backwards. Yeah, after the fact.
But how does that, this idea of when you're doing a mitzvah, you bring the light down from up, connect with the idea that, we said we're releasing the sparks from below. Which one is it? How does it?
Because I'll tell you how it works. That's a good question. When you teach a student who is very low in level, you have to go higher into yourself than you normally would to teach a student that's at your level, right? Because you have to go and find very deep ways to bring down the idea. It says like a regular chacham, he might not even be able to teach at all. But he was a very great chacham, so he has the ability to actually take his information and get it down into another person. So the same thing is here. When we're busy releasing the sparks and bringing godliness into this world from above to below, how is it getting down so far? It's because in order for godliness to get down so low, it has to come from a higher source than the regular godliness. That's the whole point. The regular godliness of the Kav is like a regular chacham. But therefore, it doesn't have the ability to bring its godliness so low. But when the student all of a sudden starts to figure things out, and from below he demands further explanation, which means I demand Gilei Elokus in this world. I'm not taking the world at face value. I want to open up this box and see godliness by doing a mitzvah. So it causes God to go beyond the source of creation in order to get godliness down there. Because according to the limited parameters of godliness for the world, it doesn't have enough to get godliness down here. So you have to draw from a higher source. So it's basically from below to... We're releasing the sparks, itself draws down the energy from a higher place.
Or is the energy from a higher place come down first to enable us to release the spark?
It comes down in a higher place only to a certain degree. It brings the Torah and mitzvahs into the world, but it does not fulfill them for you. So when Hashem gave the Torah, He basically allowed this level of divine light to sort of be hanging out here in the tzaddikim, in the Torah, in the mitzvahs. But unless you go and perform one, which means you get rid of yourself and refine your own little spark, you can't actually bring that light down. The light of you can't bring the light of the mitzvah down. In other words, it's only here theoretically until you actually perform it, and then it's there. Okay. So anyway, this is all called bringing Torah into... Oh, so in the time of the Beis HaMikdash was standing, you had revealed miracles, he says. There was open light that was beyond the kav, the established light for the worlds. Because as we know, the place of the Aron did not take up space, right? Just a quick, we always talk about this, but let's say this book is the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and this thing is the Aron sitting in the middle with the 10 Commandments in it. So it says if they measured from here to here, it was 10 cubits. But when they measured from here to here, it was 2.5 cubits. So, but when they measured from here to here, and from here to here, each one was 5. So basically, this thing did not take up place. When they busy measured this, so it should have been 12.5, right? If you measure this, you measure this, you measure this, the room should be 12.5, but the room was only 10. So the idea is that this thing did not take up space. It was there, and it took up space. If you measured it, it was there. And if you measured its place in the room, it was not there. And this was the Holy Ark. It was just sitting there like having that miracle all the time. What does that show? Is that there was no space. In other words, space is a creation. The idea that there's parameters of north, south, east, west, up, down, those are the 6 midos of Hashem, by the way. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yisod is north, south, up, east, west, up, down. And those are creations. There is no such thing as space. Hashem is not in space. He makes space. Right? And then everything else that below those 6 midos is all inside of that space that He made. So here you have something that's not in space. How is that possible? Because it's coming from a place before Hashem's midos. And He brought it down into the place of space. There's something sitting there which is beyond space.
So what? You walk into a room and there's not... I don't understand that.
You walk into a room and you measure... You take the measurements of how space is supposed to be working in like the way it works everywhere else outside the Beis HaMikdash. It doesn't work that way over here. Which means this object does not take up space. It's not in the space of the world. It has its own measurements. In other words, intrinsically it has space, but there's something funny going on here where this thing is not taking up the space of... And by the way, that's Kedusha. Not taking up space is the pinnacle of Kedusha. Getting out of the way of Hashem. So that you're not in space, but you are a mitzvah. And you are a divine revelation, which is a revelation from something beyond space. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was called Bittul. That's why our great attribute that we're all reaching for is Bittul. To remove yourself. How do you remove yourself? That's not what it sounds like, that you're supposed to sort of deny your own personality. But that you replace yourself with the self of Torah. That what are you? What was Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu, what was his favorite color? You know?
Orange.
Whatever God wants. You know? He was the Eibishter. In other words, whatever was the Eibishter's being, that's what it means Torah. You define yourself into the strict parameters of this Torah. As we're going to learn in a minute, those measurements are different than the measurements of the world. Those are unique measurements which measure and contain the Or Ein Sof. So you put yourself in these unique measurements, which is like you wear yarmulke on the bus, you have your tzitzis flying out. You don't fit into the measurements of the world, because the world doesn't do that. You have your own measurements. That means you're becoming spaceless. You're taking up less space. You're not a creation anymore. You're part of the Creator. His will is in the place. And where do we see that in full? The number one place of Hashem's will, in the center of the temple, right? The Holy of Holies. So you see that there is an ability to bring this level of light down right into this world. No space can sit right in the middle of space. It doesn't have a problem with that. We have a problem with that. It doesn't have a problem with that.
We each experience that in the festivals too, right? The crowds.
Yeah.
So not only the Kedusha of the Ark, we each individually experience the same thing.
Yeah. I think in a large way we're all experiencing it with like technology as well. You know, it was considered the greatest miracle that Moshe would stand there without a microphone and speak to 6 million people. Because space was basically taken away. And it's kind of like we're all experiencing that every time you press the button. You know what I'm saying? It's like, where's the space already? You know, it's supposed to be this vast world, this vast universe. I can talk to someone on Jupiter now. You know, I don't know if they got up to it yet, but pretty soon on Mars.
They do, yes.
You know, I can talk to Jupiter.
Yeah.
So where's the space? Where's this vast space? It's like we're all this, and the Rabbi says very clearly, technology is like a visceral, physical model for us to understand these things. In fact, that's why it was invented. That's why God gave it to us. Because we're so close to the end, He wants us to see what it means that Shlomo HaMelech drove around on a horseless carriage.
What?
Shlomo HaMelech did it without, technology, but he was using the technology. He was just using the like the Rebbe says, the ability to talk to a person who's in a distant place is a natural power that was always known to the tzaddikim. It's just that it now recently became revealed to regular people. There's people used to just get on the phone all the time. If you were a tzaddik, you want to talk to a tzaddik in Morocco, you just spoke to him, and no problem. You could have a telephone without the device. The device just brings out this natural power which is sitting in. Okay, is it natural? Is it not natural? But the point is, it's divine. It's more, for sure. It's more than was initially allotted for what this world was able to handle. You can see that we have powers now that were seemingly not initially allotted for the world. Man can fly. That wasn't part of the plan. Originally, birds, they fly.
Can we say in a way that it's even more, because it's Slavish into Teva, that it's
even higher.
even higher certain...
In a certain way, yes. Well, it's just, I believe I think that in the Rebbe's word, it's the hisgalus of this energy. It's coming out, and we're starting to see things that don't make sense really in the natural world. But just like Torah mitzvahs, we're used to it already. Oh, I can just pull out something in my pocket and have the entire known knowledge of mankind at my fingertips. That's basically obvious. Duh, right? That's how we feel. It's like we don't even use it. Because but it's not a normal thing. It's a miraculous thing.
The same concept, this relationship to space, we can apply that to time as well.
Time
the same
as well.
type of
yeah,
thinking.
for sure. For sure.
It's always now, always has been, always will be. So that means
even science itself. That's what relativity is. They basically realize that all of time is happening at the same time.
And in terms of end of times, that means that it is now, and it always has been. It's just up to us to reveal it.
Mamish. Yeah. Let's do a line or two in conclusion here. We still have some time. So that's what means space was negated. The Kain haya bechlalus Beis Hamikdash, as you mentioned. It's not just the Holy of Holies. The whole Beis Hamikdash was like that. It was all miracles. Shezeh inyan ha'asar nisim shavu Beis Hamikdash. As it says in the Mishnah, there was 10 constant miracles in the temple, which means there was a continuous flow of Tosefis light over and above the Kav light. This is a drawing down something beyond the Kav. To make a revelation of Or Ein Sof in this lowly world where it doesn't really belong, seemingly. And to your point, Reb Shlomo, how does it get down here? It's because you're drawing from a level which is, in other words, to teach someone who's on such a low level, you have to go to the deepest part of the teacher. So the regular Chacham could not get the information of godliness outside of Atzilus. He was stuck inside of his own head. But if you're going to get the Chachma outside of Atzilus, and the light of God outside of Atzilus and revealed in the lower world, it must come from the great Chachma, a higher level. You go up higher. And this is what it means, that it's drawn from the Atzmus of the Or Ein Sof, not just the Kav. It's a drawing forth of the essential light, which is it's the yet undivisible light. Right? Hashem, remember we talked about a lot in the beginning of this mimer, a few mimers ago. It went up in Hashem's mind to have this ratzon hapashut of aliyas ha'olamos. He's like, I decided I'm going to make, and we said, well, wait a minute, if you decided, that means there was a state in that light called before you decided. And we said that was called the Chetzonius and the Penimius of the Or Ein Sof, the place where Hashem decided to make the worlds and the place which preceded his decision. So that's right, the one is the source of the Kav, and the one is beyond the source of the Kav. So we're doing Torah mitzvahs, we're drawing from beyond the source of the Kav. The Penimius of the Or Ein Sof, he calls it here the Or Atzmi. The Torah mitzvahs agam shem gam kim bechinas medina. Oh, so I want to finish with this line, because this is what we just tapped into, but it's very deep. That, as it says elsewhere, that even though the Torah mitzvahs are also measured, Nevertheless, ein hamadida liyos b'chinas miut ha'or memedrega lemedrega kamo ma'amadida d'seder ishtalshelus. So it's very deep what he's saying here. Because if you think about it, we're talking about God does not measure himself when it comes to Torah mitzvahs. Because there it's beyond his decision for worlds, and it's beyond the whole concept of minimizing and contracting the Or Ein Sof. At the end of the day, though, when you look at Torah mitzvahs, there's not one mitzvah that has infinite levels of details and contractions. If you do it like this, you did the mitzvah. If you don't do it exactly like this, you didn't do the mitzvah. That's not called contraction. That's not called limitation. It certainly is. But he's saying it's a completely different form of limitation. Because it's not a type of limitation where it makes the light smaller and smaller and smaller. Like the limitation of the Seder Ishtalshus. The purpose of the Seder Ishtalshus, Hashem limited his infinite self, and he said, I'm only this. My infiniteness is limited to this. And then, because it's limited to this, then the Kav itself is based on limitation, and it goes through its own series of limitations until it winds up limiting itself entirely. It's called minimizing the light. But the limitations of mitzvahs, you're going to say, is completely different. It's like measuring the Or Ein Sof itself. Not taking a small measure of the Or Ein Sof. But because Hashem is infinite, He has also the ability to be finite. In other words, His true infinite, as we talk about all the time, His true infinite does not negate His ability to have this actual description. The only thing is, the description of the worlds is not the description of Hashem. That's like literally minimizing Hashem. And just taking a small piece of Him. The description of mitzvahs is the actual description of Hashem. And therefore, you access that light through this type of limitation, mitzvah type of limitation, whereas when you actually become a limited being, you're only accessing true limited light, which is the light of the Kav. We'll say it a little bit more in the Rebbe's words. I hope it's clear a little bit. Move on to etzem inyan hamadida, who gam kim ba'ofen acher mamadida d'ishtalshlus, which means that the type of measurement that goes on when it comes to Torah mitzvahs is a completely different type of measurement that goes on with the Seder Ishtalshlus. The Seder Ishtalshlus, he's measuring how little light this world gets, and then how little light this world gets. He's measuring how much light can come into a particular place. When he's measuring the Or Ein Sof, he's not measuring how little light, he's just taking an infinite light and giving it description, which is really something kind of baffles the mind. You know, if it's infinite, it doesn't have description. But as I said, since Hashem can do anything, He can even give description to something infinite. But the description is not saying that I'm going to have only a little piece of the light, or the light will get smaller and smaller. It's saying that if you draw this limited square of light, that's how you access the infinite level of light. You understand what I'm saying, or not so much? Okay.
It's like if it's a piece of God,
right,
and God is one,
right,
then any little piece of God contains all of God.
Exactly. Whereas, that's the mitzvah measuring, right? Whereas, when he's measuring the worlds, he's measuring how to remove the godliness from the place. He's not measuring what the piece of God looks like. He's measuring how much of this godliness do I want to remove. It's like a measuring of a limitation, as opposed to the measuring of a description. Make sense?
What is mitzvah measuring?
Mitzvah measuring is the mitzvahs. Every mitzvah is measured.
So that's Sophos?
What's that? Tosefes, yeah.
Is that from the apples or after his?
No, it's from the essence of the light. He says
before
here.
Him thinking to do something.
Yes, for sure.
Before.
Yeah.
Are we done with the class? Should I keep recording?
And again, that's the kind of the thing. Those who are done with the class, they already made that clear. Those who are not done with the class are also making that clear. But
we don't measure.
In other words, that's the whole point. The measuring that's taking place before it went up in His will, because there's measurement there also. But it's like it's a different thing. It's an implicit description that Hashem has of His infinite light. The measuring that takes place when He decides to make the world is not a measuring of what His light looks like. It's a measuring it's like a measuring cup. I only want this much in this world, I only want this much in this world, I only want this much in this world. So it's a diminishing, right? In order to create places where you cannot see God. Whereas the measuring of the mitzvahs is that when you're in those places that cannot see God, if you'll jimmy up a certain type of measurement, then as you said, that measurement is a measurement of a piece of God. Once you have a piece of God, it's a piece of the infinite God which has no measure. So you draw that down into a finite place.
Something like the story of Elisha. The lady, they kept on pouring oil, they kept on going, right?
Yeah, Tosefes, yeah.
Could you think of it like this?